Greetings, wizards! Welcome to the Papercraft Wizard channel. My name is Kelly, and I'm so excited you're here. In today's video, we're going to begin decorating the outside cover of our mini album, and we're going to be adding our belt and buckle configuration as well. I'm going to go ahead and add the first set of decoration, just the first layer of paper. I have 2 sheets here, and these measure 8 3/8 by 8 7/8. I'm going to use one for the back panel and one for the front panel. I'm just going to dry fit those and make sure that they are the correct size, and they are. So I'll add my adhesive and then I'll put this in place. And I'll use my bone folder to make sure that's nice and secure. And I'll do the same for this back piece. Whenever possible, I use a piece of the cover from the paper pack for my back cover of my album. And that's just because it has an extra protective coating on it that makes it just a little bit more durable. Once that's on there nice and secure, I can go ahead and add our faux suede spine. Our faux suede spine piece measures 9 1/4 inches by 5 inches. So for the faux suede spine, you have a suede side and then a slightly fuzzy side. And of course, we're going to adhere down the slightly fuzzy side. What I like to do is just add adhesive to the spine first. And I want to make sure that it's on there pretty thick. Or not thick, but I want to make sure that it really has a lot of coverage on there. Now I'm just going to kind of smear some of that around to give it a little bit more coverage. And then I'm going to lay my spine down. And I'm just trying to put this on the grid marks to help me line everything up a little bit better. I want to try to make sure it's even on both sides and that there's about the same amount of suede on the top as the bottom. And of course, the straighter we can make this, the better. The less I could get glue all over everything, the better. Now that we have that in place, I'm going to go ahead and flip it over. And I'm going to use my bone folder to make sure it's nice and secure. Once I have that securely in place, I'm going to go ahead and add adhesive for the sides. If you don't have or want to use faux suede, you can always use any other type of material or cardstock, or you can always just cut a piece that will fit directly over the spine and adhere that without having this wraparound type material. And I'm just using my bone folder to make sure that's nice and secure. As you'll notice, I have the book bent when I'm doing this. You don't want to do this while it's laying flat. As you can see, it does buckle up here a little bit. That's so that there's plenty of room for the cover to bend. And especially since I'm using a cover piece and it's got that coating on it, it is a little bit more difficult to adhere the suede down. So you may actually find that you need a little more glue, or it pops up and you have to adhere it down again. The second time usually works out a little bit easier once there's some glue for it to adhere to already in place. So now we'll do the other side just as we did the previous side. Really just want to make sure that suede is nice and secure. It seems I was a little bit crooked with my suede. It's okay though. I'm going to be able to cover that when we are decorating the rest of the cover. And then when we lay it flat, we will have those little bubbles, and again, that's okay. So now I'm going to add some adhesive to this little top, about approximately 1/4 inch that we have hanging out here. And then we're just going to wrap that up over the edge. This part is very difficult to get to stick because there isn't much material for it to stick to. I'm just going to use my bone folder and pull it over and then try to hold that in place long enough for the adhesive to take effect. Okay, and now we'll do the same with the bottom. And then we'll let that dry a few minutes before we try to close the book. Now that the adhesive has dried, we'll go ahead and fold the cover up, making sure that the suede stays in place. And it is. To make the faux suede belt and buckle configuration, we're going to need all of these items. I have a piece of faux suede that is 8 inches by 7/8 inches. I have a piece of decorative paper that is just under 8 inches and just under 7/8 of an inch. I have a piece of faux suede that's 4 inches by 7/8 of an inch. Another piece of faux suede that's 1/4 inch by 2 inches. And this little piece of decorative paper that's just under 1/4 of an inch and just under 2 inches. I have a buckle and some hole enforcers. We'll begin with the belt itself. I'm going to use a punch, and I'm going to use the largest curve. I'm going to punch that onto one end. If your paper is directional, we want to make sure that the large curve is on the left side. Okay, and now on the opposite end, I'm going to use my smallest curve. And this is all preference, so if you choose to do it another way, great. So now I want my small end to be where I have this little dot here. How I've done my dots is this first one here that's on the right hand side is going to be about an 1/8 inch hole. That's where we're going to add a leather rivet to attach it to the album cover. I put our first hole at 2.5 inches and then the other two at 1 inch each after. So this is at 2.5, 3.5, and 4.5. I'm going to turn my faux suede over. I'll be adding the decorative cardstock directly to the faux suede. But first, I'm going to ink up the edges. And this will just give us that nice finished look around the edges. Now that we have our edges inked up, we're going to go ahead and add some liquid adhesive, and then we'll adhere that in place. And I'll use my bone folder to make sure it's nice and secure. Once we have the decorative paper in place, I'm going to go ahead and use some scissors and then trim the suede right around the edges of the paper at both ends. And now we have our paper added onto our belt. And so now we have our 1/8 inch hole at that end. And now for the other 3 holes, I'm going to punch those with the 3/16 inch hole punch, as that best fits my hole enforcers. And now we have, and now we have all of our holes punched. Next, I'm going to start adding my hole enforcers. So I'll just pop those through the 3 larger holes. Add our little ring. I'm going to use my crocodile with the little mound and the little post there. And now our first hole reinforcer is in place. I'll do that for the other 2 remaining large holes. And now we have all 3 of our hole enforcers in place. We'll go ahead and set that belt to the side. Now let's work on our buckle configuration. We'll take our buckle piece and we'll fold this in half. This is the 4" by 7/8" piece. I have my first hole marked at just about a 1/2 inch, maybe a little less. And then the second hole is marked at 1.5 inches. I had a little boo-boo there, but it's fine. I'm going to be putting leather rivets through those holes. And then this line here at the end, this is where our little buckle piece will fit through that hole. So we need it a bit bigger. I'm going to put my hole punch at 3/16 inch. And I'm going to start punching that line out. So I'm going to start creating that little space for our buckle. And I've cut the holes, and now I'm just going to kind of clean it up a little bit with my scissors. And this is where our little buckle piece will fit through the hole. Just like that. And we just want to make sure that it has enough room to move around. It looks like ours does, so we're going to move along. Now, while it's still together, I'm going to switch this to the 1/8 inch hole punch, and I'm going to punch both of these locations here. Okay, so we'll be sticking a rivet there and a rivet there, and this is where our little buckle will sit in. And I'm hoping I gave it enough space. And I believe that is enough space there. So I'm going to take our little corner chomper. I'm going to use the smallest punch. And now this is suede, so it will not punch all the way through sometimes. This time it's decided to do it, thankfully. And it doesn't punch all the way through. You can always trim the rest with some scissors. For this one, I did not have it all the way in the hole punch in the right position when I punched it. So we'll see how we can fix that here in a second. We may just use that as the bottom piece. Here is our buckle configuration so far. Now we're going to take our little 1/4 inch by 2 inch pieces. And I'm going to go ahead and ink up that little piece of decorative paper. It will most likely never be seen, so you could probably skip this step. So So I'm just going to go ahead and add some liquid adhesive and adhere that down to the suede piece. It's okay if it doesn't cover the entire piece. As I mentioned, this is probably not going to be visible. You will probably not see this at all, but the paper does help keep the piece of suede a little bit more firm, and it'll help it adhere to our buckle mechanism. All right, so our goal here is to turn this into a little loop for our belt to sit through. I want to make sure there is plenty of room for the belt to fit through there, and I'm going to adhere it on as straight as possible, just like this. So I'm going to start with one piece. Now, one thing you will probably discover pretty quickly is this suede, though it is absolutely fabulous in many ways, does not stick to itself very well. So you may end up having to glue on your little loop a couple of times. So I'm just trying to adhere that suede in place, making sure there is enough space for our belt to go through. We really want this paper to be on there, but I didn't wait very long, so you might want to give it a little bit more time to dry than I did. As you can see here, it's very difficult to adhere things to the suede. That's okay, we're just going to take our time because this is an amazing material. Now that I have our loop secured on our faux suede buckle configuration, I'm going to go ahead and add liquid adhesive and adhere the buckle pieces together. I'm just lining that up to make sure it's as straight as possible. Right around the buckle itself, it's difficult to get a good adhesion, but no worries. Once we put this little configuration onto our album, those rivets will hold everything right into place. And here is our little belt and buckle configuration. We'll go ahead and attach these to the mini album. To create the holes here, what I've done is I used my buckle and I marked where the holes were with my pen, and then I cut the holes with my hole punch. I did the same thing for the back side. I just lined up my buckle and made the hole punch about a ½ inch in there. And now I've gone ahead, lined up my spine, and made a mark for where we're going to have a hole for our brad that will allow us to dangle a dangle from our spine. And now I'll use my 1/8 inch punch to punch that hole. And now I'm going to use some leather rivets to add our faux suede onto our background. If you don't have a crocodile which is not actually a tool to put these in, but it's one that I've made it work. Or if you don't have a press, most of them do come with a little place setter, and you can use this with a hammer to punch those into place. But I'm going to show you how to do it with the crocodile. So I'm going to need 3 of these little rivets and 3 heads. Now, if you don't want to do it this way, if you just want to glue it on, it may stay for a while with E6000. So I'm just going to add a little bit of adhesive to this to kind of help it stay in place a bit. And then I'll add my rivets one at a time. So I'm going to start with that first one. And then I'm going to try to put that right into place. Line up the second one. And then make sure that's straight. It looks straight. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over. Oop. And I'm going to add the tiny little backers here. All right. And once those are into place, I'm going to go ahead and set that aside for a moment. I'm going to set my crocodile to this tiniest little bump that it has here, and also the divot here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to punch these in place. Try to make sure that you can see this. I'm going to try to punch these. First of all, make sure it's to the right setting. I'm going to try to punch these in place with that divot side on top and the little knob at the bottom. Let's keep it desirable. Okay, so again, I'm going to put the rivet that's in the front, that rivet head right into that little divot, and then use the little pokey piece on the back. Go ahead and punch that in. And then when you turn it over, this side does have little marks on it, but we're going to cover that with paper. So not as big of a deal. I'm going to add a tiny bit of adhesive to our belt and put that in place and add the rivet through the hole. I want to make sure that the belt is as straight as possible. Oh, popped it right out of there. Going to add the back of the rivet on there. Put it back over. And then we just press that together. I'm going to use this little Tim Holtz brad. I'm just going to pop the little ends right through the hole there. I'm going to flip this over. And then I want to push these little brad prongs down very well. And now I have a piece of paper here that's 3/4 inches wide. It doesn't really matter how long it is as long as it will cover up that brad. And I'm also trying to cover up the rest of the chipboard just in case anyone peeks in through the accordion binding. It'll be covered. The spine piece will be covered. And if you're enjoying this video, please ring that bell. If you're enjoying this video, please ring that bell, give us a thumbs up, and subscribe. So I'm adding this piece of cardstock right over that spine piece of chipboard, ensuring that I glue in the brad here. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and ring that bell for notifications. Thank you for watching. Happy paper crafting.